I think. I don't know.
You guys see your gifts?
I did.
Yep. All right, we're good.
Are we up?
We're good.
We're up.
So let's see if we can actually get
Chris
audio
Barrier
this time.
is in the background. Could you close that door for us, Chris? Now let's talk about the Packers. Oh, you can stay in here.
He just
put the key back.
He just got kicked out.
And we're beginning, because we're already rolling live. Charlie Sokaitis here with Kelly Price. This time with sound, we're going to try to break down last night's Packers game. And Kelly, your takeaways off the top, do you have anything that you want to talk about?
Well, like I was trying to say before, but none of the good people of Facebook heard, there's always good, bad, and ugly in preseason games. I would say there's probably more bad and ugly in the beginning of the game. They eventually kind of settled in, and they eventually were able to start making plays, but definitely there was that slow start and kind of painful to
It
watch.
looked very preseason-ish in the
Yes.
first couple minutes of the
Yes.
contest, but in that second quarter, things really did get going. That's where we started to see the execution pick up on both sides of the ball for Green Bay. I want to start with Brett. Oh,
I'm just trying to pull up the comments.
She's
there.
making sure that we can actually hear ourselves. I want to begin with Brett Hundley, because he was the guy that we all needed to see. He's the guy that really is trying to win himself a job, whether it's staying here in Green Bay past this next contract, or whether it's getting somebody to trade for him, or even if he doesn't get traded for, go somewhere else down the line. And he did get out there. He did get to make plays. There was, like we said, some good and bad. Did have an interception, but also had that great throw to Jeff Janis. At times scrambled when he needed to, created plays. So, a decent day for Hundley.
I totally agree with that assessment. I think the Janis, that is like the highlight of his whole time in the game.
Yeah.
I thought that was the greatest play. He placed it perfectly in his hands. His route was super crisp to get there. That was just a beautiful football play. Like, you can't say anything else about it.
And that's the thing with Janis is sometimes it's been, is he going to be in the right spot? Can he run the route the right way? Well, he was perfect on that play. Absolutely juked the defender out of his shoes. And then Hundley was on time, on the money, in the right spot, in the corner of the end zone, which isn't always an easy throw to make.
Yeah, and I mean, he's also shaking off a lot of rust, too. I mean, he was injured for most of the preseason last year. He doesn't get a lot of reps behind Aaron Rodgers in real game-time situations. The quarterback's coach was saying, like, we're excited to just get him out there to play some football, because it's been a while for him, and he hasn't gotten as many opportunities as a normal backup quarterback would.
Now I got to talk about some of the bad, and the running backs were the bad last night because they really didn't produce much at all. Looking at the stats, only 47 yards, and Joe Callahan accounted for 11 of those yards. So
I would have never predicted that.
It was not the day that people wanted to see out of what can these young guys do. Also, what can Ty Montgomery do? Had the early fumble, so that's a place that we're gonna have to see more production in week 2.
Yes. I mean, and we were talking about this pregame. Like, that is one of the biggest storylines on the Packers' whole entire roster this year, going into this season. What is Ty Montgomery going to look like, and what are the rookies behind him going to look like? His second touch on the ball was a fumble, which is just not what you want to see. And I wouldn't say any of them really made any kind of impression last night in a positive way.
Nobody popped in a way that at least the fans at home are going to notice. I'll have to go back and look to see how well they held up in pass protection, which is always something that matters. But you'd like to see them get some positive yardage and maybe have, break off 10 yards here, 15 yards on a big play, maybe even one long run from one of the guys out there. We didn't get that last night, and hopefully we will see an improvement in that second game next week as they get back there on the field. On the defensive side of the ball, Kevin King, much like we've been talking about, little good, little bad. He gave up a touchdown. He gave up a long pass down the sideline. But in each of the instances where he had something that wasn't positive happen, he bounced right back, made plays, made tackles. He even laid a big hit on somebody out in the flat, and that's really what we thought maybe we would see from Josh Jones, but King is the one that did it.
That's what I've been saying to everyone, is like, Kevin King last night is what I expected to Josh Jones to look like. He was laying down hits. I mean, he might be the hardest hitting quarterback that we have back there. And I was impressed by him. In his short memory, like you mentioned, there was one, I forget who the receiver was, he got burned on something, then literally the next play, he stopped the guy right after the line of scrimmage. So just that short memory, being able to recover, being able to continue on and have success is going to be key for him, and he showed that he could do that last night.
The bad, obviously, the injuries, and we don't know how bad the Malachi Dupree one is. He got knocked out in that game. He was taken to the hospital for evaluation, movement in hands and feet and all of that. Hopefully we'll hear more from Coach Mike McCarthy today. He speaks at 3:30, so ideally we'll get some sort of update. That's Chris Barrier in the background sneezing. Hopefully we'll get some sort of update on him. But Demarius Randall also went out with a concussion. In fact, there were 5 different injuries that pulled guys off the field. So from a get through the game without losing pieces standpoint, this wasn't great for the Packers.
Definitely a painful start to the preseason. You don't want to see 5 of your guys going out, especially Don Barclay. That was, I think,
that was real tough.
That was tough. And we haven't gotten much of an update on him. It was an ankle, but I mean, and then your secondary is obviously already beat up from the start, and that's not how the Packers wanted to start, especially on secondary.
Not at all. I mean, last year they lost their best cornerback to a concussion in week 1. You don't want to see a guy go down with that same thing in week 1 of the preseason. And it's a unit that they need that unit to be good this year. If that unit can be effective, the Packers are going to be very tough to beat. If they are, again, a skeleton crew with somebody like Ladarius Gunter, who came in last year as like a 4th-string guy, having to play first-string, against Julio Jones minutes, then you're going to really struggle against those high-octane offenses.
And this includes also Devon House, who was held out of this game with a hamstring injury. It was a minor injury, and it was more of a be safe than sorry kind of situation. But if that becomes an issue for him, you're already looking at Kevin King's going to become your...
Well, this game, the Packers went from being really relatively being pretty healthy to now not. They went from only having about 3 guys that you had to be worried about, maybe 4 if you include House, though it is minor. And now they've got 4 more guys on that list that they got to be concerned about. So that's suddenly something that's going to be an issue down the line. But again, we'll know more on those injuries after Coach Mike McCarthy talks today. We'll have all of that for you tonight at 5, 6, and 10, so make sure you tune in for those shows.
We got some questions.
What do we got? Hit me with what you got there.
So, of course, people are now happy that they can hear us, which is always a good thing. We have a kind of a comment from Kenneth says, was excited to see there's some talent in all areas of play. I think we have a punt returner this year. And that's awesome because Trevor Davis was electric on that punt return.
Trevor Davis has a different kind of speed. He is one of those guys that if he gets an edge on you, you're just not going to catch him. He's got a little of that get-gone juice in him. So it's great to see. And that catch he made before the whole play, there was a gunner right in his face. And last year, the reason he got taken off of that unit is for a muffed punt that happened when they were in Tennessee. Really never saw him much again after that. This year, he made that play, guy right in his face, and then was able to turn that into a 68-yard touchdown, which was impressive.
He kind of had a nice move. The guy kind of got rid of that guy, and then he had some great blocking to take it to the house. I mean, there could have been a block in the back there, but the guys were smart about it. They did well.
The whole unit, and he credited Ron Zook's special teams coach with the whole unit performing well on that play. He even Davis even went so far as to say he thinks a couple guys could have returned it. I don't totally agree with that because, again, he's got a level of speed that only a handful of players on that team have, and most of them are not in that spot. So he really put something together there. And it's good to see. That's the kind of stuff that the coaches are looking for. Can you be an asset if you're not one of the top starting guys and you want to make this team? Can you be an asset in special teams? Trevor Davis made his case, at least in week 1, against the Eagles.
And that's his key to making this team because that receiver core is so stacked. There's no way that he's making
Well, you got about 12 guys in camp, and you know the first couple of those positions, Jordy and Cobb and Adams, they're not going anywhere.
I think they're going to make it.
Yeah, so the rest of those spots, I mean, if they only keep 7, you got a lot of guys fighting for those.
Yeah. All right, so we have another question. What do you guys think of Joe Callahan?
Well, I love Joe Callahan's game. He strikes me as like short Brett Favre. Now he's not as big. He doesn't have the same arm as somebody like Favre, but he does Favrean things, like when the plays break down and he zips out, and actually in some ways a little bit Russell Wilson-like in the way that he can keep a play alive. He makes things happen, but I don't know if you can have him be your number 2 backup. I don't think he's going to edge out Hundley at any point, but he is a good guy to have on your team because injuries happen. He knows how this team works, and he directs guys. He's a a mastery of what's going on when he's on the field, and that's impressive to see.
You should have asked Favre what he sees in Callahan when he interrupted your last shot the other day.
But that would be assuming that Brett is at home watching preseason games, and I'm not really sure that that's what he's doing with his time.
He's not studying Joe Callahan?
Nah, I think Brett Favre is watching a lot more girls volleyball as his daughter's getting ready for school than he is watching first preseason game reps of Joe Callahan.
That's true. Kenneth says, running game was ugly. Agree with that.
Yeah.
Was impressed with defense.
Yeah, I was impressed with the defense too, but I get worried about being, I guess on both sides of the ball, I get worried about being too optimistic about what you see because a lot of the top end guys for a team aren't playing, so your defense isn't going against the top end guys. I struggle to determine how much you want to give credit for it, but I will say, what you don't want to see is them just go out and get toasted. They didn't. They gave up that early touchdown, and then after that, they really locked up. So it was a positive thing to see, but on the defensive side, I think we got to keep watching week to week and watch as some of the guys that are starters, some of the bigger names, get more and more time in these games.
Correct. I totally agree. Couldn't have said it better. Kenneth says, reminds me of Desmond Howard, although I don't know who he was talking about there. So someone reminds of
might have been Trevor Davis.
Maybe. But, no, he's definitely a good guy to have on the Packers team. I think it's going to be exciting to see if he's able to do that a couple more times. It's fun to watch, for sure.
Well, and here's somebody that had himself a nice day, and this is a guy that's gotten a lot of talk. All the backups love him to throw to him, but Max McCaffrey had 60 yards, 7 targets, 3 receptions, got 20 yards a catch. He's a guy that he just makes things happen. He finds little ways to get open, and that could be something. He's going to be fighting for a spot. He could potentially be in that last wide receiver opportunity, or maybe he's back on the practice squad. But he's a guy to keep an eye on. I think again, a lot of the quarterbacks, specifically the backups who play with him and practice a lot, they really like him as a safety valve kind of guy, and. When you look at what this team has, that could be useful. Yeah,
I mean, yesterday, the whole world got to see his hands are great. I mean, I, knock on wood, haven't seen him drop a pass, at all, even in camp and practice. He's got great hands, and his routes are so crisp. I read an article about how he really focused this offseason on, really perfecting route running, because that was a weakness for him. And it shows, that's something that it's a big skill for him.
And he's got the family genes.
True. True. His brother might give him some pointers.
His brother's doing pretty well over there in Carolina right now.
Breaking some ankles and
stuff.
The
old man, it wasn't half bad either. Yeah. So, if you guys have any other questions, we'll take them. Otherwise, I think we're going to probably break out of here pretty quick because it turns out we've got actual work to do for the shows today.
Who knew?
I know, sometimes. Everybody's got to pay the bills somehow. But we do have another game coming up. We will break that one down after it happens, the day after, in a similar fashion, so be looking for that. For now, I'm Charlie Sokaitis with Kelly Price, keeping you connected for NBC 26.
And now we have to really awkwardly
I know, now we have to turn it off.